Welcome back to another quality video brought to you by ApplianceVideo.com. In this video, we'll show you how to remove and replace the thermistor on the Samsung electric dryer. You will need the following tool to complete this repair. Stop. Before beginning any repair, always be sure to disconnect power to the appliance. It is also recommended to test the outlet for proper voltage. To begin this repair, gain access to the rear of the appliance. We'll start by removing the top panel. The panel is held in place by two Phillips screws. Start by removing the screw on your right. Followed by the screw on the left. With the screws removed, grasp the panel and slide it back to disengage it. Lift up and set it aside. Next, we will remove the console. The console is held in place by three Phillips screws. We'll start with the left side. Followed by the center. And finally, the right side. With the screws removed, roll the console forward. Take note of the two wiring connections located on the right. Remove the first one by depressing the tab and pulling apart. The second connector has a button that must be depressed, rather than a tab. These connectors are differently sized and shaped, so there's no possibility of mixing them up during installation. Finally, the console is held in place by 6 tabs. Lift up and out to disengage the tabs, and set it aside. Now, we can remove the front panel. To remove the front panel, there are a total of 6 Phillips screws, 2 on the top right, 2 on the top left, and 2 below the lint trap behind the door. We'll begin on the top right. Followed by the top left. And finally, the 2 below the lint trap. Now, close the door and gently grasp the top of the panel and release it from the 2 tabs holding it in place. Before removing the panel completely, disconnect the door switch Molex, located in the top center. Pull the panel up and off the tabs at the bottom and set it aside. Next, remove the console guide panel to gain access to the front bulkhead. The panel is held on by 5 Phillips screws. Remove the screws using a Phillips screwdriver. We'll begin with the 2 on the top left. Followed by the top right. Then, the bottom right corner. And finally, the bottom left corner. With the screws removed, the panel is held in place by 4 tabs, as well as a wiring strain reliever that must be removed. First, pull the panel up to disengage from the tabs on both sides, and flip the panel around to access the strain reliever. Release the wires by untwisting the strain reliever and pulling the wires out, and set the panel aside. Now we can remove the front bulkhead. We'll start by removing the 2 strain relievers, as well as the drum light wiring connector. As you can see, our first strain reliever has already come undone, but if yours is still connected, untwist it in the same manner as the previous one and pull the wires free. Unplug the drum light Molex. Next, remove the 4 Phillips screws holding the bulkhead to the frame. We'll start on the upper left and move clockwise around the bulkhead. Remove the screw located on the blower housing. Next, remove the wiring harness located to the right of the blower housing by depressing the tab and pulling apart. Finally, lift up on the bulkhead and pull out to disengage the tabs on each side. And set it aside. Now we can remove the belt. Reach inside the dryer and grasp the idler pulley. Pull it towards your left and slide the belt off. Then, let the idler rest gently back down into position. Pull the drum out, taking care not to catch the belt on anything as you remove it. And set it aside. With the drum removed, we have clear access to the thermistor. To begin, remove the wiring connector by pulling straight off. Remove the 2 screws using a Phillips screwdriver. With the screws removed, pull the thermistor out and set it aside. To install the thermistor, set it in place and start the top screw by hand. Tighten it down. Leave the screw slightly loose so you can line up the bottom screw. Now install the bottom screw. Return to the top screw and finish tightening it. Finally, install the wiring connector. The connector can go on either way since it just completes a circuit. Now we can reinstall the drum. To install the drum, bring the drum and belt into the dryer and rest it against the back. Give it a few turns to make sure the bottom is seated on the roller. Also make sure the belt is in the same position it was before removal. Reach under the drum and slowly pull back the idler. Wrap the belt around the motor shaft and idler, and then slowly release the idler. Set the wiring harness across the top of the drum to get it out of the way. Before installing the bulkhead, take note that the front rollers must seat under the drum seal. Bring the bulkhead up into position and lock the tabs onto the frame. We'll start with the top left, followed by the top right, and finally, the bottom two. Next, install the 4 Phillips screws that hold the bulkhead to the frame. Install the Phillips screw on the blower housing. Then, reinstall the bottom Molex connector. It is keyed so it can only go on one way. Now, fasten the wiring harness into the stringer levers on the top of the bulkhead by twisting them together. Place the wires in the guide on the top of the light and guide it through the final stringer lever. Finally, reconnect the wiring harness. Bring in the console guide panel and reinstall the other half of the wiring harness into the stringer lever. Rotate the panel into place, making sure to lock the tabs into the frame. Do the same on the other side. Now, reinstall the 5 Phillips screws to secure it in place. We'll start on the upper right corner, followed by the left corner. When installing this screw, check to make sure the tab on the control board housing is on top of the panel. We'll move on to the bottom right, and finally, the bottom left. Now, we can install the front panel. To install the front panel, set the bottom in place, lining up the tabs on the frame with the holes on the panel. Then, bring the top into place and install the door switch Molex. Bring the panel the rest of the way up to lock into the tabs on the front bulkhead. Now, install the 6 Phillips screws. Once again, we'll start on the top right. Followed by the top left. And finally, open the door and install the screws located below the lint trap. Close the door, and you can now reinstall the console. To install the console, align the tabs with the holes on the front panel. Reattach the two wiring connectors on the right side. Now, roll the console back against the front bulkhead and snap it into place. Next, reinstall the 3 Phillips screws. Now we can reinstall the top panel. To install the top panel, set it in position and slide it forward to lock it into place. Install the 2 Phillips screws, starting with the right. Followed by the screw on the left. And this will complete your repair. Thanks for watching. If you found this information helpful, please like this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel.